In this segment, I'm speaking with Harry Oberreiter. For more than a decade, Harry has been creating products that are shipping in millions and making the lives of many people easier. Besides running the R&D and production for mobile phone maker Emporia Telecom, he invests into hardware and software companies and helps them bring their products to life via his company 5X Ventures. Seeing the potential of Shenzhen, Harry moved to China in 2007 and continues to live here with his family. 5X Ventures empower hardware entrepreneurs to build their products 5 times faster. 5X team backs founders building amazing products using the latest technologies and help them go to market quickly. If you're one of these founders, the in-house team of 30 plus engineers in Shenzhen will support you hands-on to get your product from prototype to mass production and distribution.
Make sure you come with more than just an idea. I mean, the idea is important, but you had that before, and that's how you created the product. Make sure once you come to China or to Shenzhen that you really come with a prototype that is good enough to make the next steps. China is not the place for you to start your journey, but like the middle to end stage, I would say, for the project. Make sure you have a very clear spec and make sure you write that spec in the most easy language, in the most easy English actually you can do. Don't use flowery words. If something is green, don't call it's a mixture of blue and yellow, just call it green. It's very important that this kind of simple language, it sounds a little bit strange, but it is really important because communication is a big challenge. That's why you have to make sure your spec is very, very clear. Then go through the spec with your suppliers, with the manufacturers you meet, and make sure it's understood. Chinese will very often say yes if you ask them, did you understand it? Yes. Ask a question if it's really understood. It's not that how to say, they want to be polite. Even sometimes they don't understand it, they will still answer you yes. And it's just politeness. That's different in culture. So that's the things you have to get used to it. You better make sure for the sake of your project that you go through it and that your spec is really watertight. Chinese suppliers will sign anything for you, but in the end, that's not the protection. So even you have a good spec and everything was inside the spec already, and it was signed at the kickoff, and you did the down payment, it will not protect you that you get what you want in the end actually. So a very important part of this is you have to be there, you have to talk to the supplier, you have to always follow up on it. Let's say you have to be the number one project manager for all fields in the project if you want your product to succeed. Because even you write down a timeline, it doesn't mean that it will come in this timeline. It might be delayed afterwards, or there might be some troubles, and then the answer you'll get is, oh, sorry, we tried our best. We already did our best. And what I always say is like, I don't even want your best. I just want what we specified in the beginning, and that's basically what you have to do. So make sure before you come here everything is clear. Bring engineers if you come down here, because business part is one thing, but then it goes right down to the technical details, and actually the engineers can also help you to really make them understand what you need in the spec. Finding your supplier is probably the most important and most crucial thing you do, and a lot of things can happen with the right suppliers, and a lot of things can go wrong with the right supplier. And especially now our audience is startups and young companies that try to come to China. You will not be able to work with the tier one suppliers. You won't work with Foxconn, you won't work with Flextronics in the field of hardware, because your quantities might not be enough at the beginning for them, so they won't even look at you. And the thing you have to understand about the ecosystem here, there is no real middle ground. So you have tier one, and then you have the rest. And expect to really put a lot of work in actually building up your supplier. First of all, you find suppliers. Of course, you can go online, but that's where you find more like the traders, right? They might speak a better English, but then you have one person in between, and you will be paying them until the end of your project. Or what I did actually is went to exhibitions. You can go to exhibitions around the world. You can go to CES. You can go to IFA. You can go to Hong Kong electronic shows actually, and you will find direct factories. So you will find the direct access, and so you make sure you don't have anybody in between. Of course, after that you still have to double check the company certificates. In the end, it comes down to the first contacts you make basically, and it's not easy. It's really not easy. You have some help on ground. So there's companies which are here for a long time already. They do this business. They actually will help you to get started in Shenzhen. And there's the economic chambers which the countries build up overall in China, and they do a great job as well. So you can ask them to, for example, check a company certificate. They usually do like give you a few hours for free to help you to get started, and but that service is quite nice as well. In the last 13 years, I guess more than 100 people calling me up. They get referred by friends, and they would ask me, Harry, you're in China for a long time. I want to start my business, and let's say there was this guy who had a product that's in the injection space, like for injection molding. So he had the raw material and also some fixtures for the injection machines. And he was in contact with a Hong Kong guy, and the Hong Kong guy suggested him to open a office in Shenzhen, and I told him, don't do this, because first of all, the real estate here is expensive, so your office will be expensive. It might be convenient for your Hong Kong guy or partner to go to Shenzhen, just cross the border, stay in the office and go home. But if you have that kind of product, you go to Dongguan, because this is where the factories sit. This is where you put your warehouse. You have short delivery times, and you don't pay that much rent. And that's one thing you have to understand in China. There is special regions for products. There's a city that makes zippers, that makes like 95% of all the zippers in the world. There's a place where almost 100% of all e-cigarettes are made. So it's really important also that you match your product to the location actually. Yeah, the COVID-19 situation changed a lot in the manufacturing space actually. Parts of it are good because they have much more production capacity, which means they might take your project actually because they have to fill up some production capacity. I have a friend, they make mainly lighting for LED products. So their factory before ran on 7 days a week, 3,000 people, and now they have 4 days a week with 1,000 people. So that part is positive for you if you're coming to Shenzhen, because you have more chance. But to find those kind of suppliers is I would say very difficult if you're not on site, because you cannot go for an inspection, you cannot talk to the people involved. So for this period, I suggest really that you contact companies that are on the ground. Like with my company 5X Ventures, we help a lot of people doing exactly like that, but there's many more, and it really depends on the field, on the type of product you are doing. You can contact the economic chambers, so they usually also have contacts. Yeah, COVID changed a lot, but not everything is negative. There's a lot of positive things as well. So I can give you an example for that. Actually, for our company, we do a lot of electronic products, right? But as a lot of countries, one after the other, went into lockdown, of course the shops closed, so the sales went down. But that's the great thing of this city, like Shenzhen. It gives you such a flexibility. It moves so fast. So within a few weeks, we were able to really ramp up also production for products that were needed during that time. So we went into face masks. We are developing right now social distancing devices in form of wristbands, and that's the supply and production landscape here. It really supports you. So you have to be flexible. You have to always stay flexible, and the city will give you the resources. Budget, of course, always depends on the type of product you're doing. If you, I'll give you an example for a budget, okay, just for that you get a feeling. Years ago, I made a waterproof device. It was a mobile phone. It was waterproof, and the I asked a German company to quote, and I asked a Chinese company to quote on the tooling. So basically, just the injection mold tooling to do it. And I remember it quite clearly because it was such a big difference. So it was 400,000 euro for the mold actually in Germany, and it was around 50,000 for the same mold in China. And what I found out later, the German company was actually working together with the Chinese company on that. So the budget is almost 1/10 of that. If you go from Europe to China, that was also some time ago. So this gap has narrowed a little bit. But it really depends on your project. So it's difficult to say what kind of budget you need. But what you should have is you should have people on the ground, and that influences your budget a lot. So when you make a hardware product, it's all about people. And if you want to make that product also in a reasonable time, in a reasonable fast time, you need quite a lot of them to follow up your projects. It's not just enough to have one project manager. You should have, depending on the type of product again, a mechanical engineer, a hardware engineer, a software engineer, to really follow up, because all the communication, everything is going on in Chinese. All the supplier contacts are in Chinese. So you really have to calculate that into your budget. And from a timeline point of view, that's similar. It depends on the project, but I can give you one project, for example, which was a notebook I did for a company I invested. It's in the digital education area, and from start of the project till shipment, it was 6 months, which is basically the first 2.5 to 3 months for the final prototype, and another 3 months for production already. And it was really targetized for kids. So there's a handle that they can hold it. It is spill proof for water. It has a touch interface, and actually they launched just before the COVID, and it's doing really well. So for that notebook project, in total it took 6 months, and for notebooks the order quantities are not that high, so we went in with a first order of 1,000 pieces. That 1,000 we managed to deliver within the first 6 months, and the project total budget was like just below 500,000 including the goods already. 500,000 euro including the goods. The first step is always the design. So that's the stuff you do at home already. You make a volume mock-up, which is basically just the thing in a block of plastic, and just touch it just to get the feeling of it. That's just to make sure that you get the right size for your product. The next steps you do the mechanical design, the hardware design, the software design. All of that runs in parallel. So you don't wait for one to have the other finished. And I also, there's a lot of companies, they think first about just doing the hardware and the software, but don't think about the mechanical design. And that's what a lot of companies do wrong in the beginning, because you have to, for a complete product, you have to take everything in consideration. Otherwise, it will throw you back in your timing. After you got that fixed, you make the first pilot run, which means the first plastic comes out of your injection molding process. You got the first PCBAs, the software running. You integrate it, make a small pilot run of probably, I would say, maximum 50 pieces is enough. Then you'll find out the problems. You rework it. You order. You will make all the changes in the layout, in the software. Software is always easy because you can always update later on, but still you don't want to delay it too much. You make the fine tuning on your mechanical designs, go into the second pilot run, do a little bit more quantity, maybe 100 pieces, and then you should end up with a nice golden sample. That's important, that you have one piece of your product which is really like how you want to ship it. And that's including packing already. That's also some part which is always or usually forgotten. The packing design, the user manuals, all that certification. So you really want to have something in your hand and say, okay, from this now I want to produce 1,000, 5,000 or 20,000, right? And with that, it should give you the confidence to really make your first order. That means the first down payment you make, and usually you pay 20% down payment. Then the project is kick off, and then you will still during the first order find out major or minor problems, which you can just find during mass production. So it's normal. Don't be afraid of that. If there's still some blockers coming up while you're already in production, your supply chain needs to adapt. You will find out that some parts maybe or some machines, when you have set up a process with a machine, they will change after 2,000, 3,000 pieces, so you have to adjust them again. So it's very important to check the quality at all the time, and then fine tune, and then the second order will be better than the first order, and then it goes on. But it's a continuous process. Don't think because you make one thing nice and good that the production is running good. It's a difference of making a few 10 pieces or 100 pieces or 20,000 pieces. Usually, eventually, your quality problems will go down, because once the machine is running, then everybody knows what to do, but you have to follow it up very clearly. And to make sure that your quality is okay, actually, you should have somebody on site almost during the whole time of the project. So it's especially, I mean, it always depends on the project. Simple projects don't need so much attention, but if you make a hardware product which is integrated, which consists of PCBAs and maybe some moving parts, some mechanical design, software, it's not easy the manufacturer is only as good as the guidance he gets from you, let's say it like this. So you have to have the people on the ground all the time. You have to follow it up. You have to follow up the time plan. You are the number one project manager, remember. You are responsible for getting the things in time. Even you pay somebody to make it for you on time, you're responsible to get it on time. Because in the end, it's your loss. It's not anybody else's loss. And especially in hardware manufacturing, the cash flow is one of the most important things. I have seen many companies that have really good products and they're not able to finance it. Imagine you have to make a production, okay? Before it goes to the end customer, you finance the parts 6 weeks, 8 weeks in advance. Then you produce it, you export it, you ship it to wherever you want to sell, probably Europe, US. That takes time. You can, of course, use an airplane. That's expensive. Or you use sea freight, which is much cheaper, but it takes another month. Then you deliver it to your customer. He delivers it to the stores. And then usually in Europe, we work with payment goals. That means they don't pay immediately. They also give you 1-2 months afterwards. After you deliver, they will pay the goods. So be prepared to finance that. And I've seen a couple of companies actually, because their process is not running well, going down. And just imagine your product is out there, and there is, of course, a lot of problems you can find and quality issues you can find during production, but a lot of products will show their issues only once they're in the market. Maybe a customer bought it, and after 6 months of usage, something will break, and that happens when you have a new product. And then you have we call it epidemic failure, and then the after-sales avalanche starts to roll in. And if you're not prepared for that, also cash-wise, that can kill a company really, really fast. So hardware is pretty difficult from a cash flow point of view. Very difficult. Basically all started with me going into chip design. I made microchips, and some of them still fly around in satellites for the European Space Agency. Actually, for one of our first products, which was a mobile phone, I was working with Infineon, which was later bought by Intel, on the chip itself. But it was how to say, not so fulfilling, because it's like you're on a very, very deep level, on, I would say, on a bit level. You know every transistor where it's placed on a microchip, but I always wanted to make products. And that started a small journey, like still back in Europe. We started with a robot in a small batch production. So it was probably back then one of the early STEM educational robots you can get, actually. And then I knew I wanted to make products, so I went eventually into mobile phones, smartphones, watches, smartwatches, IoT devices, tracker, everything basically with battery inside. We are working on, as I mentioned now, because of COVID, on social distancing devices on an electronic basis. We make medical devices, educational devices. We're even working on an e-bike now. So you have to be open, you have to be flexible. And bringing that in perspective with Shenzhen again, like when we did that there was a Hexapod robot in Austria. There is actually a quite successful company here in Shenzhen that does this kind of STEM tools, and they basically made the same thing what we did in Europe, but it's it's a different approach here, because here you make a product not to like play around. You make a product in order to really bring it to the masses and sell it. So they're hugely successful. I think they're beyond $500 million now, 8 years old company, and selling STEM products with the supply chain of China, of Shenzhen. Your role will be, especially in the beginning, you are the centerpiece. So you really get involved in everything. You talk to the suppliers, you take care of the project in terms of the quality, you check every point, from your spec. So you have a very, very integral part in that process, especially when it's the first time you go to China. You have to be here. Don't immediately move. That's something we will talk later about. But you have to be here for weeks in a row to be able to do that. I remember in the beginning I put in 100 hours a week, easy, for several years, just to get everything started, to build it up, like to build up your brand, to build up your products. You really want to get involved in every detail at that point. And at the same time, build up a team. So that's same essential as in Europe, I would say, to have a good team. And then afterwards, after some time, your role will change, right? And it's super important to have local staff and to have staff you trust. So you hire fast, but you also fire fast. Really try to find somebody whom you resonate, whom you think you can trust, and just try it. Just try that out. It's one of the most important things, and that gives you afterwards the time actually to do other things again and to focus on other points. But in the beginning, be there, or have a partner on site you trust, or an investor who has experience in that. Otherwise, too many things can go wrong. We mentioned already that finding the supplier is the most important part, but finding people who you can trust is easily similar important. If you have people that are not committed to your product, and you are 10,000 kilometers away somewhere in Europe or in the US, that's gonna be a nightmare to handle. So once you have that core team built up, make sure they are happy. Then you venture in this kind of position that you're responsible for your people, and even the culture is 100% different. Everybody likes to be cared of, and in the moment, I would say my number one role is really to take care of my people, and I'm so happy. I have most of the staff works for me more than 10 years now, which is quite long in China already. Imagine the city the modern city here is kind of was developed in the past 10 years, and I have seen many companies build up and disappeared in the same time. And it's really important to learn from your staff as well, and also to be a teacher at the same time, because otherwise it wouldn't fit together. You are on one side, you're a Western company, so you have Western values and you cater for the Western market, which means quality in products, it's delivery on time. And so be a teacher, take those values you have and you grew up with, and bring them to your team. And on the other side, learn the local habits. It's so important. And then if you can combine that together, you'll be successful. The first employees we hired was actually a project manager from one of the suppliers, and he wanted to switch job, and then he asked us and said, "Hey, can I work for you?" And and he's still here. That's more than 13 years ago now, and it was a Hong Kong guy. And at that time, in 2007, that was a huge difference. There was really a difference in attitude, in how you approach work. Hong Kong people had a wider scope of field in their profession. If you at that time, if you hired a local Chinese project manager, for example, he knew how to make this product. But if you go a little bit to the right from that project or from that product, he was lost already. So I'd like to hire, or I had Hong Kong guys, a lot of Hong Kong guys in the beginning actually, and that changed over the last 10 years as well. I would say there's no difference anymore. In the beginning also, I mean, now you have the internet, you can put your job, the position you're searching for online. You get applicants, you do the interviews. 10 years ago we went to job fairs, so we literally went to it's more like an exhibition. You go there, you put up your company name and a description of your company, and then people come and apply to work for you. But that's just for the first few people, right, to get you started. And then afterwards, referral from the people you have already is a big thing. So they'll talk to their friends. And one thing in China you have to understand: everybody is so connected. So if you want to get to somebody and you say, okay, I wanna start to do drones now, then somebody will know somebody who was working for, let's say, DJI, and get you started in that way. So use that resource. Ask your people if you need something. Don't go yourself and try to find things online. I mean you can do this to get an overview, but as long as you don't speak and read Chinese, it's difficult for you to navigate the Chinese internet anyway. And ask your people. For networking, China's are really, really good. Talking about compensation for the people you need here, for software, hardware, mechanical design, quality, project management, operations, everything, supply chain. The price level now, or the salary level now, is like, I would say, on a European, Austrian level, sometimes over that already. And when I came here back in 2007, it was like 1/3 of that, probably. That was also because China didn't take so much care on tax or how you ran your company at that time, tax-wise. But nowadays, you won't save money on that. So if you hire a good engineer here, be prepared to pay a similar amount than you pay in Europe. If somebody asks, which is seldom, but he asks for much less than what that position should be, then there's something fishy. On the other side also, if somebody asks like a crazy amount, usually it's a negotiating process, right? For a really good project manager, like who can really take work from you, I would say you have to spend between 30 to 40K. The longer they work for you, it goes up. The past 3 years, it was kind of stagnant, didn't go up like crazy. It's younger people with less experience that try to get in with a higher starting salary, which is the trend, because big companies like Huawei are giving those youngsters directly from university quite a good basic salary already. But that increase which happened in the first till, I would say, 2016, 2017, that yearly increase, because there's not enough resources, right? So everybody was fighting for it. That doesn't happen anymore. And so if you pay roughly the same what you pay in Europe now, then you get good guys and a good team. And pay them well. Otherwise, if you're too tight on the budget for that, then they're easily to move to the next company. The amount of salary, of course, is important, but I think what's equally important nowadays, and that was not true before cash was the number one, it's really how you handle your people, how to say, I like to try to integrate them in a family. So when we have now around 40 staff here, and I will make sure that if a new person comes, he really fits, and he has his clear task and role in the company. That's very important. Before it was common to make overtime. It's still common to make overtime, especially in the manufacturing world. But people learn more to appreciate actually a normal lifestyle. Like even we are in Shenzhen, and even everything is push, and we have the fastest speed of development. They even have a word for that, Shenzhen speed. The resources you have in terms of the people working with you are the most important. So I really try to take care of them on a personal level, make sure they have enough time with their families, make sure they don't work crazy hours. They will do it anyway when you ask them to, and it's necessary before a project launch, or before a product launch, or let's say before Christmas when all your products have to go out. They'll help you. And then appreciate it. Give them a bonus, give them a hongbao. Hongbao means an envelope with cash inside. Nowadays you give it with electronic payment like WeChat or Alipay, and go to have lunch and dinner with them, and learn that in this culture it's really a lot about actually meals and discussion during that time. I made the best decisions when I was talking with my people during lunch, or some of the best decisions. I would not say that's always, but that's when they open up a little bit more. That's also, when you get to know the culture, then you know when are the people in a mood when you can talk to them. So it's the social aspect, I would say, is more important than in Europe, and they will appreciate it. I would not be able to have my people for that long already. Like, I think 80% of the staff is there for more than 8 years, 50-60% more than 10 years, if I would not take care of them personally. To get what you want from a supplier, it really helps if you start to have a good relationship with the owner of the factory, for example, with important people in a company, in your partner company, because it will help you in the end more than the contract you made. If you start to push too hard, for example, you have a delay in a product, and you start to push too hard, it can be very easily that your partner says, "Oh, sorry, we tried already our best, let's stop here." And you will be devastated, because for them, you paid everything, right? You always have to see it like this. They try to learn something, they take on any project, that will always say yes to everything, because they think we can learn something out of this, and but you're the one who is actually paying for that experience, to basically bring your supplier to a level to be able to supply to you. And so even you have everything written in the spec, you have everything in the contract, and you made already sure that you're on site, and you push the project, you make sure everything is on schedule, you double check everything. If you hit a major roadblock, this personal communication and this personal relationship with the owner will be your make or break point eventually. If he likes you and if you have a good relationship and a good basis to talk to, you can get everything from them. If it's the other way around, then you can lose everything based on that. So really make sure you know the people behind the companies you're working with. Horror stories, many actually, and some of them funny, some of them are really, I would say, business threatening. I remember having suppliers go bankrupt. Of course, you get no information. The government will seal off everything. You have probably 2-3 million of stock in there, like in terms of chipsets and just material. And then it's up to you to get that stuff out of there. I had it like 2000, the first one 2010, 2009 from a Chinese supplier, and the second one 2011 again, same story. This was a big supplier, Elcotec. It was actually a really big worldwide company, but also offices in China. And I heard already rumors they'll go bankrupt. And the day before, we had a call with the headquarter, and the owner president was in Sweden, I remember, or Norway, not sure. And he assured us, no, there's no bankruptcy. But the Chinese guys already told us that it's gonna crash. So it crashed, and if that happens, you have to act really fast. And basically, the same night, I organized a truck, a few people, and before the government was able to actually seal it off, got all the stuff out of the factory, gave some hongbao to the Bauern there, the security guy, to make sure you get it out. You have to be really fast on that things. And then you take all your stuff and go to the next manufacturer and set it up. And what can you do? It's always difficult when this kind of things happens. And I'm not talking about you pay some money to somebody and it doesn't deliver. That also happens. Fake companies, if you don't do your due diligence. But usually what I do, once I build up a product, I start building up the same product a second time with a different supply chain. So you really make sure, even when suppliers goes bust, you are able to deliver. It always depends also, like, what's your quantity? It might not make sense that you have two production lines running the same product, right? It's really, once you're in a certain scale, you do that to make sure you can deliver, even if one part of your supply chain breaks off. And yeah, what else can you do? I mean, I mentioned do your due diligence, really check the company certificates, go there, be on site, hear the warning signs. So usually people start talking. If a company is not doing good, listen to your staff, encourage your staff also to tell you these things. Usually, and it's different to Europe again, Chinese people don't want to give you bad news. They only want to give you good news. They will only present the good news to you. If there's bad news, you have to kind of get it out from them. And that's one part of the teachings you can do to your staff, and say, guys, always try to be open. You have to train this. It's not enough to just tell them. You have to train it with them. You say, hey, I want your opinion on this. What's going on? What's out in the field? Because eventually, once everything is running, and you might be here, you might not be here, you have to trust those people, right? And you don't know what's going on in every corner of your operations. So really be in contact and listen to your people. You can definitely save yourself a big headache if you make sure you have local contracts, and in case you want that Hong Kong part included as well, together with Mainland China, then you just make your manufacturer sign that those are both companies, they're belonging together. So previously it was really used as a shield, and I think many companies don't even know what they are doing when they come to China and don't have the legal knowledge about it as well. Of course, you have to get your product ready. You have to get it into mass production, and then you have to make sure that your supply chain is really, really running well. As I mentioned before, managing the cash for hardware companies is one of the most difficult tasks, because you have to finance it way advance before that product even goes to any customer's hands. Make sure you don't try to put too many features in your product. Sales or people are actually often very simple, and they really try to focus it down. Even if it's hardware, try to find your niche and a problem that's solved by your product. Try to make good quality. You don't want to try to create stuff which is thrown away in 2 weeks and then it's landfill. Really, I want to double down on quality, because after sales, I mentioned it before already, can be a really big problem if it comes back after 6 months, 1 year. In Europe, you have 2 years warranty. Make sure you design the product for the customer and you make the best possible product. You don't want to create landfill. You don't want to create anything that it's not needed in that world. You also must make sure that the design you do is a nice design. Everybody likes to have nice toys or things around. So my story with Shenzhen started back in 2007. At that time I was working at the university in the research department, and I made chips, microchips, together with Infineon and also for the European Space Agency. So I was always in the electronic field, but I was feeling that I wanted to actually make a product. And that's quite difficult, to be honest, to do in Europe. So I had this friend that worked as an outsourced accountant for a mobile phone and phone company. At that time they made cordless phones, landline phones, and also wanted to start like their own mobile phones for senior people. And that was really, really interesting for me, because I always wanted to make a product. And at the same time, I had the offer to do my PhD from one of my former professors at the university. So I was like in this, do I keep West or stay in the West? There was even an offer from the US, or do I go to China? And after talking to Emporia Telecom, that was the company, I decided within half an hour basically that I would go, and that it would change my life. I didn't know that at that time. At that time you think you do this for 2 years, and I was, once I set foot on the ground, I still remember my first day coming across the border. There's all these fake taxi drivers. You're tired from the flight already. They wanted to sell you the ride at that time I was living in Futian. They wanted to sell you the taxi ride to Futian, which is 20 RMB for like 400 RMB. And I have several friends who like tapped into this. But if you just cross the footbridge, there's proper taxis waiting there already. And yeah, in the beginning it was just like, okay, let's see, let's experience it. You have to be very interested in a country, I think, and I was really interested in the East. I called it the Wild East at that time, and I think it was really that spirit that what you know from the Wild West. It's like mirrored to here. It was really, really nice, and after a few months, like really getting into it, doing everything, working 100 hours per week, I knew that that's gonna be that there's something really really big happening. Even at that time, it was not that shiny Shenzhen which you know from today. Everything was gray, everything was dusty, it was chaotic. Like you could feel the moment you step across the border, you could feel you are here. Um, and and actually, like fun coincidence now, they are just redoing that border, Huanggang border, which I used first to cross Shenzhen. It will be a super shiny building, but at that time it was like, yeah, you came from one side in and you were spit out on the other side, and everything was bustling, but it was really chaotic, not set up like today. I really liked that time, and I really like to see that city grow. It was amazing. Um, I believe in, like back then, I would say it was really way behind Europe in terms of infrastructure, in terms of um, probably even education, financing, even the manufacturing space. It was there, but there was not really innovation. It was more like copy paste, like churn out products, churn out plastic for the landfill, and and it's I can still not understand how it happened, but within 13 years, I think they made a jump of at least 25 years, if not more, in that kind of space. So you wouldn't recognize it anymore. It was such a immense progress. Everything went up in parallel. You see, you see buildings everywhere in progress, and suddenly there's a new part of town ready, and it continues till today. I mean, if you look at Jianhai, which is a new district, they are building like, I don't know, 40 skyscrapers at the same time, and it's crazy, amazing. And to be honest, I feel quite honored to have experienced that time actually, because you can't see that anywhere else. When you're a foreigner in China back then, um, there were not too many. So actually, you were when you saw another foreigner on the street, you were greeting him. You were crossing the street, and you approached them. That completely changed, and now there's many foreigners. The business environment, I would say, got much better. In some terms, it got more bureaucratic, but at least you have a clear way of how to set up a company, how to hire an employee, how to make a contract with an employee. Before you had to improvise a lot, so you had to be very flexible, and that flexibility transformed now. I think it was good that I learned it at that time, because it transformed into the flexibility of being flexible on what you do, how you do your product and do your business. It is also, or it was difficult in the beginning, especially because it's a completely different culture. So the challenges you have is not just how to set up a company; it's how do I talk to people. Even what do you buy for dinner? Like easy challenges, but in the beginning it's difficult for you, because you don't speak Chinese, you don't read Chinese. At that time there was no like Google Translator. So you go for pictures, you learn how to you learn how to find your way without actually understanding. There's a lot of feeling involved in feeling the other people. And even before I could speak Chinese, and my Chinese is still not good, but I already knew what people are talking about, because you develop a certain kind of sense. But this only happens once you spend time here. So I would say you can get rid of all of these challenges which you might face by just spending some more time here. Then you will learn about why does a supplier not talk to you anymore, because you make him lose his face. And I went through that things, and I learned it the hard way basically. But all these things made me who I am today, and made me going the next step, and especially Shenzhen as a super dynamic city made me also not just work for a company but pursue to make products, and I was always interested in different kind of products. So I wanted to do a multitude, not just one. That's why I started 5X Ventures, also to help companies to and to be able for myself to be part of different kind of products, and to keep continuing on the journey, I think. And the challenges are here that you face them, and once you face them, you will be able to manage it. And it's so much easier now than it was 10 years ago. You don't have to think about if your goods go out of the country because of customs. It's a very clear process. It's actually quite pleasant to be here also, not just for work, because if you start to build up your business in China, you have to ask yourself the question also, do you want to move here? Can you imagine actually to be here and live here? If you cannot, then don't. Then it will be also difficult to set up your business, or you have a partner who can imagine to do that. Otherwise, it's really, really, really tough. And Shenzhen is now, I think, like the last decade, I would say, was like transforming in terms of technological progress. And I can feel now those, I want to call it soft skills, are coming more and more. So they're building really world-class schools. They're taking care of the environment. The city is green. They're making bike lanes and coastal walks that are, like, for me, unseen in anywhere else in the world, basically. So it's really becoming a really nice city to live also. It also has to do with manufacturing will eventually move out of Shenzhen. Or for the most part, it actually moved already out, right? So it's more like going to Dongguan, and after Dongguan, it will move inside. And for mobile phone manufacturing, it went to Sichuan recently. So the past 2-3 years, there was a transformation. So there's different kind of business coming into Shenzhen. And the city keeps on embracing this and changing, and it's really, really nice to see it, actually. To my fellow Austrians, I would actually highly encourage you to make that move. Even if it's for a few years, you can learn so much, and especially Austrians like to not go out of the country. I don't know why, it's maybe our mentality, but whenever I hire engineers in Europe, then I'll make sure I also bring them to China to just to know the local team, to know the habits, because it's different, right? And it's so important to make sure the communication is well and they can communicate with each other. Otherwise, you'll always be in between the translator. And then you have these very talented new guys from the university in Austria. And I asked them come to China for 2 months, and they're like, oh yeah, I have to talk to my girlfriend first. We are only here once, and you're only young once. Make a move, try it out, and be open, and it will be very, very interesting, and it will enrich your life. And it's not just about business. Making your product is one thing, but you don't have to forget to that there's a life also at the same time. And Shenzhen is a great city to combine that actually.
So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the interview and all the insights. In case you have any specific questions related to this interview, or even your specific case in terms of a startup, fundraising, building your product, etc., please do feel free to reach out to us. We would be more than happy to engage with you or connect you with the relevant people, experts, our speakers, or anybody else who can help you solve the problem.